Today, January 4th, 2026, NFL history changed. With 5 minutes and 14 seconds left against the Bengals, Myles Garrett recorded his 23rd sack of the season, reaching one of the hardest numbers in football. A season defined by constant double teams, slow starts, late surges, and total defensive focus. And still, the standard was met. And if you're a Browns fan watching this moment unfold, a quick heads up before we go deeper. I've officially partnered with Fanatics. If you use my customized link in the comments below, you can get your own Myles Garrett jersey for 25% off at $97.49 instead of $130. Now here's where the moment gets bigger than today. Because long before sacks were officially tracked, long before record chases were televised, Al Baker reached that same number, 23 sacks, in 1978 as a rookie with the Detroit Lions. At the time, sacks weren't an official statistic. They weren't celebrated, they weren't preserved. But decades later, after detailed film and box score research, Pro Football Reference did what the league never fully corrected. They officially recognized Al Baker as the unofficial single-season sack leader in NFL history. And instead of protecting that number, Baker welcomed this moment. He rooted for Myles Garrett. He understood what it meant, not just for one player, but for the standard itself. That's what this story is about. Not taking anything away from today, but finally bringing yesterday back into the light. Before we dive in, make sure you like this video, subscribe to Old School Sundays, and stay with us because this isn't just a record being broken, it's history finally lining up. Before sacks were a headline stat, before edge rushers were marketed as superstars, before defensive dominance came with graphics, bonuses, and countdowns, football still had to be played, and it was played violently. In the 1970s, defensive ends didn't chase numbers, they chased quarterbacks. No sliding rules, no in the grasp, no automatic whistles. If you got to the passer, you finished the play. And then you lined up and did it again. What didn't happen was someone stopping the game to record how many times you'd done it. That omission matters more than people realize. Because the NFL didn't just forget to count sacks, it forgot to preserve entire careers accurately. Seasons happened, games were decided, quarterbacks were punished. And when the film was put away, so were the numbers. Not erased maliciously, just never officially acknowledged. This created a silent divide in football history. On one side, the modern era where every sack is logged, ranked, and replayed. On the other, an era where dominance existed without documentation. And that's where Al Baker entered the league. He didn't arrive with hype. He wasn't chasing a legacy. He was a second-round pick out of Colorado State, stepping into a Detroit Lions organization searching for identity, toughness, and respect. What Baker brought wasn't flash, it was pressure. Relentless, unavoidable pressure. Quarterbacks felt him before fans learned his name. Week after week, Baker collapsed pockets, beat double teams, and changed offensive game plans, all while the league treated those moments as disposable snapshots instead of historical data. Coaches knew, linemen knew, quarterbacks definitely knew, but the record book stayed quiet. And that silence shaped how generations learned the game. Because when you don't count something, you don't teach it. When you don't teach it, you don't celebrate it. And when you don't celebrate it, you risk losing it entirely. What makes Al Baker's story different isn't just what he did, it's when he did it and what the league wasn't ready to measure yet. And in his rookie season, that gap between reality and recognition was about to become impossible to ignore. Because the pressure was building and so were the sacks. By the time Al Baker stepped onto an NFL field in 1978, the Detroit Lions weren't expecting history. They were looking for resistance. They got something far more disruptive. Baker was 22 years old, 6'6", around 250 pounds, long, explosive, and unusually quick off the edge for his size. From the opening weeks of his rookie season, it became clear he wasn't just learning the league. He was overwhelming it. Offensive tackles struggled to anchor. Quarterbacks rushed throws, protection schemes shifted entirely to his side. And then the numbers started piling up, even if no one was officially counting them. By the end of the 1978 season, Baker had 23 sacks, an NFL single-season record that would stand untouched for decades. Not as a veteran, not in a contract year, as a rookie. He even recorded 5 sacks in one game against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, a performance that would still rank among the most dominant single-game pass-rushing efforts in league history. The irony? None of it appeared in the official record book. Sacks wouldn't become an official NFL statistic until 1982, Baker's 5th season. But the damage was real. Coaches knew it. Teammates knew it. Detroit fans watched their defense transform almost overnight. Baker became the cornerstone of the Lions' famed Silver Rush defensive line, anchoring a unit that terrorized offenses from 1978 to 1982 and set franchise sack records that still stand. Over his first 5 seasons in Detroit, Baker unofficially totaled 75 and a half sacks, including 23 in 1978, 16 in 1979, 18 in 1980, 10 in 1981, and 8.5 in just 9 games in 1982, the first year sacks were officially tracked. That stretch ranks among the most productive starts to a career in football history, regardless of era. Yet, outside of Detroit, the league moved on. No official milestones, no banners, no permanent correction. What should have been one of the most celebrated rookie seasons ever slowly faded into trivia, whispered about by historians, ignored by broadcasts, and misunderstood by generations who never saw the film. And that raises a question the NFL still hasn't fully answered. How do you honor dominance when it happened before you decided to measure it? Because what came next would only deepen the gap between what Al Baker achieved and what the league chose to remember. Detroit didn't just draft a pass rusher in 1978, they accidentally drafted a standard. And standards get expensive. After 5 seasons with the Lions, Al Baker wasn't just a star. He was the backbone of the Silver Rush, a defensive line that played like a pack. Baker wasn't doing this alone, he was part of a culture. Toughness, accountability, and that gritty Detroit belief that you could win a game by making the other team miserable for 4 quarters. His presence didn't just create sacks, it created identity. But the NFL has always had a complicated relationship with defenders who know their worth. In 1983, a contract dispute ended Baker's Detroit run and sent him to the St. Louis Cardinals, the kind of move that can quietly erase a player from the national spotlight. New city, new locker room, new system, and the league's attention drifting elsewhere. Baker didn't sulk, he punished quarterbacks anyway. In his first season with the Cardinals, he posted 13 sacks and even grabbed 2 interceptions, a reminder that he wasn't a one-dimensional edge rusher. He followed it with 10 sacks the next year, dipped during 1985, then surged again with 10 and a half sacks in 1986, proving something most players never get to prove, that dominance isn't a one-season story, it's a mindset. And here's where the story gets human. Baker once said he hoped to play long enough to make a fortune in football. Then, my son can be a doctor. He won't have to play this dumb game. That wasn't bitterness, that was clarity. A man who understood the cost of the job and still showed up to do it at a Pro Bowl level. Then came the late career chapters, reserve roles with the Browns and Vikings, and then a return to Cleveland as a starter in 1989, playing all 16 games like a man refusing to be filed away. And just when football was supposed to end his story, Baker's second act was about to make him famous in a completely different arena. And that next chapter would test him in ways sacks never could. Because the league didn't just underestimate Al Baker the player, it was about to underestimate Al Baker the man. For most former players, recognition fades quietly. Jerseys get packed away, highlights stop running, the game moves on without looking back. That wasn't how it happened for Al Baker. In 2021, more than 4 decades after his rookie season, football history unexpectedly came knocking. Not from the league office, not from a ceremony, but from the historians who decided the past deserved a second look. After years of detailed film study and box score reconstruction, Pro Football Reference publicly recognized Baker as the unofficial single-season sack leader in NFL history. 23 sacks, verified, documented, no longer folklore. When Baker heard the news, he didn't celebrate like a man chasing validation, he cried. Not because he had waited for praise, but because he hadn't been waiting at all. The acknowledgement arrived so late that it felt almost surreal. He admitted it had been more than 20 years since he had even thought about sacks, records, or comparisons. And yet, in that moment, the weight of a career finally settled into place. What made this recognition different was the timing. And instead of pushing back against the present, Baker leaned into it. He openly supported Myles Garrett, praising his drive, his mindset, and his pursuit of greatness. Baker didn't protect the number, he respected it. He understood that records aren't possessions, they're responsibilities. They challenge the next generation to rise to the standard. That perspective is rare. In an era where legacy debates often turn bitter, Baker chose generosity. He saw Garrett not as a threat to his place in history, but as proof that the standard he set still mattered. That dominance, even decades later, still echoed. And then, On January 4th, 2026, Garrett reached 23 sacks, the same number Baker set nearly half a century earlier, not replacing history, not erasing it, but forcing the football world to finally look at both names side by side. And that's when this story stopped being about the past and became about what the game chooses to honor right now. When Myles Garrett brought down Joe Burrow with 5 minutes and 14 seconds left in Week 18, the moment felt cinematic. Not because it was flashy, but because it was earned. That sack didn't just cap a season, it completed a journey defined by patience, resilience, and relentless self-belief. Garrett's 23 sack season didn't begin with fireworks. Through the first 6 games, he had just 4 sacks, the kind of slow start that fuels doubt in a league obsessed with weekly output. But what followed was a stretch that defines greatness in the modern NFL. 18 sacks over 9 games, including a 5-sack explosion against New England that reminded everyone why game plans still bend around him. This is where the comparison to Al Baker becomes more than a shared number. What connects them most isn't violence or athleticism, it's mindset. Garrett didn't panic when the Steelers held him without a sack in Week 17. He didn't force plays when Cincinnati bottled him up for 3 quarters. He waited. He trusted the work, and when the moment finally arrived, he didn't celebrate wildly, he finished the job. That echoes Baker's own approach decades earlier. Do the work, let the result come, then move on. The difference is context. Garrett's season was documented in real time. Every pressure, every double team, every counter move dissected. Baker's wasn't. But when Garrett reached 23, the comparison became unavoidable. Not old versus new, not better versus worse, just 2 pass rushers in 2 very different NFLs reaching the same summit by different paths. And in that moment, the number stopped belonging to one era, it became a bridge between them. What gets lost in the excitement of a record-breaking moment is just how rare it really is. 23 sacks isn't a number you just stumble into. It doesn't happen because of one good matchup or one hot month. It requires durability, discipline, constant adjustment, and the ability to withstand weeks of double teams, chips, slide protections, and offenses built specifically to slow you down. Most elite pass rushers never get close. Even legends circle the number without touching it. That's what makes this moment bigger than one season. Because when a modern star reaches 23, it forces the league to acknowledge how high the bar truly is and who said it first. Long before analytics departments, pass rush win rates, or weekly sack graphics, Al Baker established a standard that survived nearly 5 decades without ever being officially celebrated. That standard shaped the position. It influenced how defenses were built, how edge rushers were valued, and how dominance off the edge became one of football's most coveted traits. Players today grow up studying pass rush moves, counters, and film cut-ups because someone before them proved that disrupting the quarterback could change entire games and entire seasons. Baker didn't just rack up stats. He helped define why sacks matter. Not to diminish what today's players have accomplished, but to honor the lineage they belong to. Because greatness isn't just about who breaks the record, it's about remembering who made it worth breaking in the first place. As we close this story, moments like this remind us why football history matters. Records don't just appear, they're built. And before the graphics, the broadcast, and the official stat sheets, players like Al Baker set standards the modern game is still chasing. Today, we celebrate greatness in real time, but we also owe it to the game to remember the men who laid the foundation. If this story gave you a new perspective, make sure you like this video, subscribe to Old School Sundays, and drop a comment letting me know what you think about Al Baker openly rooting for Myles Garrett to break the record he set nearly 50 years ago. That respect across eras is what football legacy is about. And one last thing before you go, again, I've officially partnered with Fanatics. Check the pinned link in the comments to get 25% off your Myles Garrett jersey. Because history matters, standards matter, and here on Old School Sundays, we make sure the full story is remembered.